Welcome back to the arcade. Today we're going to start the next installment of fixing this Popeye board, and decided I'm going to start with the CPU board here. So we're going to remove the sockets. So I was thinking that these prom sockets look okay because the proms I took out, the legs look good and shiny. But in closer inspection, I can see that these 16-pin sockets, they're Texas Instrument sockets. And these are the kind that instead of grabbing the legs on the flat side of the chip, they come in from the side and they wipe the edges of the legs. So, and looking at them, I think they're corroded also. So if we're going to do all the other chips and replace all the sockets, might as well go ahead and just get rid of those too. Also, first time I've seen these type of sockets, and I've never tried to remove them, so I don't know if you can peel off the plastic top, because it's a lot easier to desolder and to take the pins out of the board if they're not attached to the socket. But it's not impossible. We can do it. So let's go ahead and start with these. We'll start small, and then we'll work our way up to the 28 pins and then up to the 40 pin sockets. So let's go ahead. Let me try to reposition this so that you can see what I'm doing. And I know it's kind of boring to watch me do the whole thing, so what I might do is I might just try to showcase how to do one of each and try to condense it down. Or I might go ahead and film the whole thing and speed it up. I don't know. If you have a preference, you know, let me know in the comments. Which do you prefer? Do you want to see everything done in real time? It'll take longer and drag the videos out. Or do you want to just see a little block, how to do one certain thing and then move on to the next? So I can do it any way you would like. So maybe we'll get a consensus on that and find out what everybody wants. Okay, let me set this up. I think I got some glare. I'm going to have to reposition the camera and some lights and a few other things. So we'll be right back. Okay, let's try this, see how this works out. It's a little awkward either way I do it. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, so far so good. No problem with pads lifting. They all cleaned up pretty good, even with probably some corrosion on the solder, even though I'm sure using that toilet bowl cleaner, the works probably cleaned them up a little bit. But the key to it is to add that new solder to it, and that sort of breaks it up. All right, let's see if it'll come out now. Let's see, that's it right there. Hard to get this thing in the camera here. And just like that, came right out. Looks good and clean. And let's see. Yeah, these pins look like they're molded in pretty good. I don't think they would come out. Let's try something here. I'm going to grab one of them. And just yank on it and see if it'll come out. Yep, it came out pretty good. Maybe you can take these, pop them off. Try another one here. Came off, but it's still pretty good amount of force to them. We'll get that to focus or not. Probably not. But yeah, these are definitely sideways. They clamp on the edge of the pin. Let me spread this one apart a little bit and look at the contacts. This one here actually looks pretty good. So the sockets might be okay, but we're already started, so I'm going to get rid of them. Okay, I'll come back when I finish these, and we'll get started on the other ones. Well, those 16-pin sockets came out without a hitch. Matter of fact, they came out so good it's scary. Okay, now we're going to do the let's see, 28-pin ROM chips here. Well, sockets. Keep calling them chips. The ROM sockets, 28 pins. Let's go ahead and I'll set the camera up. I'll flip the board over, and I'll go ahead and take one of those off in real time and show you what that's like. Okay, all set up. I think you can see that. So let's go ahead and desolder that chip socket. I think the secret to this is make sure your desoldering gun is clean. I just cleaned it before I got started. It doesn't take long for it to build up solder and start stopping the flow of the vacuum. And when you're doing it, you listen for that vacuum. If you hear it sucking up, you know it's sucking the solder. When you stop hearing that, you know you're starting to stop up and you're going to have to stop and clean it. Also, this particular gun, the tube here that holds the filter, There's a little spring in there. Now probably next time I clean it, maybe I'll do a little tutorial on how to do it on this particular gun. But it seals on the front and the back side with O-rings, or a rubber seal on the front and an O-ring on the back. And the gun comes with a silicone grease. And you put that grease around the O-rings and the rubber, and that creates a good vacuum seal. Without that grease, you can have leaks up there, and that'll cause your vacuum not to be as strong. So that's one of the secrets. That, and you have to dial in your temperature to get your temperature right for the board you're working on. Once you get those things dialed in, it goes pretty quick. And of course, adding a little bit of solder, wiggle it around and suck it. And that's basically all you do. Get the tip over the pin, heat it up, wiggle it around while you're desoldering. And the mic ought to be picking up that sucking sound. And to create the most vacuum, you want to try to hold the flat tip of the tip as flat all the way around. You want to hold it flat against the board. That'll create the most vacuum seal, so that it'll suck that solder up between the pin and the through hole. And sometimes you're going to have little solder balls that spit out. So you can clean them up before you put the sockets back in. Again, if you watch classic arcade repairs, I believe that's what he calls cleaning up the sparklies, or something like that. Again, check out his channel. Even if you're not into board repairs, you'll pick up on a lot of stuff from watching his channel. And you might even pick up one or two things from me, even though I'm no professional. I'm just a hobbyist, just like a lot of you. I started out knowing a little bit, but like anything, you have to learn, and you can only learn by doing. So but you don't want to pick an expensive board to test on. Pick up some old junk. Go to a garage sale. Pick up an old radio, or any old electronics. Not necessarily to fix it, or not to ruin it if it still works, but just to practice on. Something that doesn't work is fair game. And who knows? You might be able to repair it. Whatever it is, an old video game console, or an old AM/FM radio, old phonograph. A lot of these old handheld computerized games from back in the 80s. There's a lot of good stuff out there that just need a little tender loving care. This may seem like boring and tedious work, and it kind of is. But if you enjoy it, it can be very therapeutic. Get tongue-tied there. Okay. Let's see what happens. That should take care of it there. Get it back in the frame here. It's loose. Let's just have a solder glob of one pin holding it. Yep, it's got one little pin holding it. And still got it. Okay, it's trying to be stubborn. I'll just add a little solder to it. Suck it out. And bingo, there it is. Okay, well, we only had one little hiccup, one pin stuck, but that's to be expected sometimes. Still no big deal. Came out, it's nice and clean, the pads are fine. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these remaining 3 off of here, and then I'll come back and we'll do the 40-pin CPU socket. Well, still no complaints. Those 3 28-pin sockets came out a lot easier than the first one did. No problems at all. So now all we got to do is the 40-pin sockets. 2 of those. One for the CPU and one for the sound chip. So let's start with the 40-pin for the CPU first. Let me go ahead and get that positioned. This is about the hardest thing, is trying to get all these shots lined up. Okay, I think that looks good. Keep my eye on it here. Whew, 40 pins. Okay. Okay, that's half of them. That's 20 pins. I figured I'd go ahead and just do it and not try to talk at the same time. Good thing I'm not chewing bubble gum, or we might have a problem. I know this is boring, but this is what you have to do. So if anybody is looking to get into doing this kind of repairs, you need to just see what you're getting into. So that's why I like to present it as you're doing it, instead of abbreviating everything. I mean, I could do 2 or 3 holes here and then cut and show the whole thing done. But I think a good format is just like I'm trying to do here. Just doing one of each socket on the board, so that you get an idea of what it takes to do that one socket. And then if you have 4 of them, well, you know, you got to multiply it by 4 or 6 or 8 or however many you got. And they all basically the same. Doesn't matter if they're 8 pin or 16 pin, 14 pin, 24 pin, 28 pin, 40 pin, whatever. You still gotta desolder them 1 pin at a time. And it's not a speed contest. Anytime you get in a hurry, I've always had problems, so never need to get into a hurry with anything. Okay, well, let's cross our fingers and see what happens. Let's turn it over. Okay, here it is right here. And look at that. Pulled it right out by hand. And that's pretty much the way it's going. So now we got one more 40 pin to do, and this board will be done. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then it's getting kind of late tonight. I think what I'll do is I'll figure out how many pins. I'll add them all up, and then I'll take and clean the gun out, and maybe I'll show everybody how I clean the gun, because like I say, I don't know how many pins I can clean out before the gun will start to stop up. And if it stops up, you have to stop halfway in the middle of something, you know. So if I get this one board done, I'm going to clean it out, and I'll see how much is in the gun. That'll kind of give me an idea of, in the future, you know, how often I need to clean the gun. But always a lot easier with a clean gun. Okay, well, let me go ahead and I'll get this other 40 pin chip out, and then I'll come back and we'll take a look at the board and see what it looks like. Okay, well, all the socketed chips have been removed. The operation went smoothly, and here's the results. Here's where the 4 proms went. All right, and here's where the 4 ROMs go. And let's see. Here's where the CPU is going to go. And here's where the sound chip is going to go. And this is without any cleanup. This is just straight from the desoldering station. Let me flip it over to the bottom side here. And there's my proms. And right here is where the ROMs go. Let's see, right here is the CPU socket. And right here is where the sound chip goes. As you can see, the board is just as clean as can be. So I've been real happy with this SolderWerks BlackJack BK4000. I've had it for quite a number of years now. I'm pretty sure it's discontinued now, but they still have some for sale, I believe, on their website. Circuit Specialties, I believe, is who sells them. And like I said, I've been real happy with it. They do have other models, newer models. They even have one that's like the all-in-one handheld job, like the, was it Hanco, that a lot of people have. So maybe sometime in the future I'll get one of those because it's more portable than this. I mean, this is a pretty big unit. Has a nice carrying handle on it and all, but it's bulky. But for on a test bench or something, it's, you know, pretty much perfect. And it's served me well over the years, so I can't complain. Not that I use it every day, but when I need it, it's here and it always works. Now there are a few quirks about it, and when I do a clean out, I'll go over that. And I don't know if the other guns on the market are similar. I know it's one company that this is probably a copy of. I can't think of the name of it. It's a company, they start with an A. But their gun looks identical to this. So it might even be interchangeable, I don't know. But like I say, it's been a good one. Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up for the MPU board as far as desoldering the sockets. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to do the video board. All right, well, it's the next day. So before we get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about the BlackJack BK4000 desoldering station. And this is the gun. The only thing that's in the gun is the heating element and the filter tube up here on top that catches the solder. And the gun just has a vacuum line and a power line that goes up to power the heating element, which is up here in the tip. It came with this right here, which is a long skinny drill bit that you can stick up in the nozzle, if I can find it there, and clean the nozzle out. Of course, sometimes it'll stop up right up in here where it comes out of the piece of metal barrel here, it goes into a rubber seal and comes out the rubber seal just a little bit. And right there sometimes the solder will gang up there and cool down, and it'll plug it up right there where it exits out the heater barrel. So when it does that, this thing right here doesn't do a very good job. You can pull it back and let it heat up. If you got the gun on and the heater element is hot, it'll heat up that drill bit, and then sometimes you can push it up in there and it'll melt it loose. But if it really gets plugged up, there's nothing you can do but take it apart and clean it. I have one example of that happened. See if I can find it here. Yeah, here it is right here. This is the little plug. It almost looks like a it was cast, little piece of cast metal, but it's a piece of solder with the little nozzle tip on the end of it where it's solidified inside that nozzle. So that was one that really plugged it up. And then I have some more examples here. This is all solder that came out of the filter when I cleaned it one time before, a couple times really. So anyway, I cleaned it before I started doing the CPU board on this Popeye, and we took out 4 16-pin sockets, 4 28-pin sockets, and 2 40-pin sockets, which is a total of 256 pins. So I'm going to take this apart and clean it, and we're going to see how much solder we get in 256 pins. You got a little button on the back here, you just pull down and that releases the catch, and then the back end slides off, or don't slide off, it just slides back. And then you can lift this barrel out. And we can put this over to the side. It has a little sponge filter that goes in the back side here, and you have to wet that sponge. So every time you use it, you have to at least crack it open and put this sponge in water and let it soak. So I'm going to do that now, let that be soaking. It has this spring right here, which is supposed to catch all the solder. And as a matter of fact, this thing at one time had plugged up again. And you can see that it was starting another one of them little casting things. So I'm going to put it all down here. And these springs are kind of hard to clean out sometimes. You can see the solder had a little bend in it, and it was sprung open right there, and you can see where the solder is sort of been dripping out of it here. So what you do is you can pull the spring like this, and it's supposed to just fall out, but it don't. This is stuck in pretty good. So let me clamp this on it here and see if I can't pull it apart. That's ugly right there. Okay. See, it came apart, but with that sticking out like that, I'm not going to be able to get it out. So let me see if I can cut these pieces off. First time I've seen it do this. Okay, it just broke right loose. This is the hardest part, getting it to come out of that spring. You have to kind of break it apart a little bit, because it is kind of porous. Get out of there. Alright, let me see if I can grab the tail. There we go. So this is all the solder from 256 pins. And it was almost to the point where it was going to stop it up again. So, it's very important to keep your desoldering tool cleaned out. Now, because I just cleaned this out, I'm not going to have to put any more grease on it. This piece right here comes off. And this is the little piece right here where the hole where the solder comes through, and it gets stopped up right there quite often. This is the front rubber seal, and you just put the spring on it. Then you put it back in the tube, and then I get my sponge to soak up the water here. Go through quite a few of these sponges too, because once they're used a little bit, they seem to get kind of stiff and don't want to soften up as easy. Okay, this one is still good. So you put the sponge in there. What that sponge does, it keeps the solder and the fumes from being sucked down into the vacuum pump. Okay, now all we got to do is put that back in the hole, line it back up, push it till it clicks, and we should be good to go. And that's what you got to do to clean the BlackJack BK4000. All right, let's turn it on. Let it heat up. It only takes a few minutes to heat up, and so I'll go ahead and set up, and we'll get ready to pull the sockets out of the video board. Okay. Well, this is the video board, and this one here, we got 8 28 pin sockets, 4 here and 4 here. We got one 24 pin socket, and we got one 16 pin socket. So let's go ahead and we'll start with the one of the 28 pins up here. And let's start with this one right here. I can get a little closer here. Yeah, I think that'll do it. And just like before, I'll go ahead and run you through the first one. And then I'll go ahead and finish up the rest of these, and then we'll come back to the next size. Let me put my magnifying glasses down because I'm about blind. Make sure I got the right ones here. And we'll see how this board does. The other board did great. So I don't suspect this one will be any different. Of course, different boards can, even on the same board set, can have different characteristics. So you still have to always be on your guard. Even though I haven't changed any of my settings, you still have to kind of look at the board and see what it's doing and make any adjustments if you need to. Now, so far, it don't seem to be any difference, so that's good. But you always have to be aware, just because one board reacts a certain way doesn't mean the next one will, especially from different manufacturers. And you never know what they did back in the day. You know, they could have got the video boards made at one manufacturer and the CPU boards could have been made at another manufacturer. It's just something you don't know. So it could be subtle differences in the board. It could be differences because of when they were made. They might not have been manufactured at the same time from the same stock. There's always plenty of variables. So much nicer right after you've cleaned them out, so. You can really tell the difference. And because I'm adding solder, which helps it, it just makes the filter stop up even faster, because you're practically doubling the amount of solder, if not a little more than doubling, depending on how much you put on here. But it's something you got to do. Might seem wasteful, but it's not wasteful if you get a clean removal because of it. It's well worth the extra little amount, even though it's been a while since I bought solder. I imagine it's not cheap, but nothing nowadays is. And that's something you got to consider. If you send a board in to a professional to get a board repaired, you might think that his price is outrageous for fixing the board, but you don't understand how much time goes into repairing the boards. Sure, sometimes they can have an easy fix, but sometimes even the guys that know what they're doing can get stumped, and it might take them a while to hunt down a particular problem. And then you got the cost of all these parts. They're not cheap. So, you know, you might think, oh, it sounds like a lot to get this board fixed, but you're getting the board fixed. And some of these boards nowadays, the prices are out going sky high. Like that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time I got over there. I looked back through my old emails. I got that right around 1999 when I bought this jammer cabinet. And I got reading through my old emails, because I save all my old emails. And the guy that I bought it from, I had forgotten all about this. He was supposed to fix that volume control on that board, and I was going to buy it from him. But it took several weeks. He claimed he ordered the part, which was nothing but the volume control. And finally he got to the point, said, well, I still ain't got the parts to fix it, you know. So he went ahead and sold it to me. I did buy it, but I paid $25 for it. So I basically got it for nothing. Now that same board, I see them sell in excess of $600 on eBay and other places too, not just eBay. Okay. Here's the one I just desoldered. Give it a little wiggle. And there we go. Comes right out. Easy peasy. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and got 7 more of those to get out. Ain't no need in you sitting and watching me do all that. So I'm going to do those. Then I'll come back and get this 24-pin socket and then the 116-pin socket over here. And then that'll finish up the socket removal. So let me get busy and I'll see you in a few. Okay, 8 down, 2 more to go. So let's get those. This one here is a 24-pin. And let's see if I can zoom in on it. And I'll take you through that journey. Okay. Down to the home stretch. This 24-pin socket out. And then all we got left is a 16-pin socket. Every single one of them 28-pin sockets came out without a hitch. And the board looks great. Okay, it's half done. Seems like it's taking longer for the solder to heat up here. There we go. Maybe some of these got a little more oxidation on them. So I put a little more solder on them when it starts to melt. Okay, yeah, that's the last one. Okay, let's see if any of those stuck. No, came right out. And it looks good. Yeah, looks good. Okay. Now we got to get this 16-pin socket out. So let me turn this one around. Let's see. Right here. Make sure that's it. I don't want to take a chip out instead of a socket. Yeah, they're so close together, it's easy to get them mixed up. Okay, I think we got it now. This one shouldn't take long, I wouldn't think. is a different type socket. The other board, I think, had a Texas Instrument 16 pin, but I believe this is another manufacturer here. This is made by the same company that makes those other bigger sockets. I guess the manufacturers had to use whatever they could get. So I guess you could find just about anything in these boards. But they might have had a preference to a certain type if they could get them. Whether these kind of sockets are any better than another type, I don't know. Some people seem to like them as long as they're not corroded for a single wipe socket. Is there any one type of socket that's better than another? Boy, that's a debate. It's like opening a can of worms. Especially some people hate machine pin sockets. I rather like them myself, but I mean, they are a pain if you have to take them back out. And they will corrode just like anything else, especially if you got an alkaline battery or something leaking. I don't care what it's made out of or how it's made, it's gonna mess it up. So anyhow, all right. Let's see if we're going to have good luck with this one too. There we go. And let's see. That's it. All the socketed chips are out. Okay, well, next thing we need to do is start installing sockets, but I can't do that right now. Well, I have 16 pin sockets and I have 24 pin sockets, but the 28 pins are still on order, and I do have 40 pin sockets, so 28 pins are the only one I'm waiting on, but I think I'm gonna wait till I get the order in. I don't know when they'll be in. I believe today is Sunday. I just got an email saying that they're just ready to ship. I ordered them last Thursday, so well, what can I say? They'll get here when they get here. In the meantime, tomorrow will be Monday. If the Postal Service delivers on time, which here lately they've been hit and miss, I should have my ROMs in. So if I get the ROMs in, if nothing else, maybe we'll switch gears and we'll program some ROMs to have them ready for when we get the sockets in. So till then, I'm on hold.
I made a save the man. I lost the clinic, but I keep living. I'm not like a salesman.